mà lẹ níbẹ̀ yẹn ò nílé lóko. Ẹ sì kú dédé àsìkò yìí. Hello everyone, it's Adironke again. I hope your day is going well. Today I'll be addressing proverbs and how they may contradict. Proverbs are so important to us that we would say, òwe lẹṣin ọ̀rọ̀, ọ̀rọ̀ lẹṣin òwe. Bí ọ̀rọ̀ bá sọnù, òwe la fi ń wá. We tend to express ourselves many times with proverbs instead of uttering 5-6 sentences and going off. Just one proverb can be stated and interpreted by the recipient of that message in such a way that it will encompass any other theme that could possibly be added. You let the person ponder when you don't speak so literally. With just one statement, you find that your message is a little bit more effectively passed than if you just rambled on and on and on, you know. So what I've just stated, òwe lẹṣin ọ̀rọ̀, ọ̀rọ̀ lẹṣin òwe, bọ́rọ̀ bá sọnù, òwe la fi ń wá. What that means is proverbs are horses for words, and words are horses for proverbs. When words get lost, we find them with proverbs. When you don't know what to say, you don't want to offend, you don't want to ramble on and on and on and on, you want your message to be as effectively passed as possible. And if your intention is making less damage, with less damage, with less hurt, you let the person chastise their own self or advise their own self or praise their own self. Òwe lẹṣin ọ̀rọ̀, ọ̀rọ̀ lẹṣin òwe. But you find that sometimes there are contradictions. If you sought my advice regarding a matter, I can say something if that's what I think is the most appropriate, and I can say another thing that might be completely different from that, and they would both be proverbs. So the essential message of this video is that someone has stated a proverb to you, or it's me, so you came to me to seek advice, that I've said something doesn't make it the most encompassing message that you could ever receive. May not be the best message either. That it's a proverb doesn't mean it's good for you. You still have to rely on your higher self, on your Ori, to guide you on how best to proceed or how best to handle a situation. That it's a proverb doesn't mean, oh yes, this proverb applies to my situation so well, I must follow the message that it provides. Not necessarily. So I'll show you some proverbs that are that way, that may say something, but when you assess another counterpart, you find that this is very unapplicable. This is so unlike this other proverb. One of such is iṣẹ́ lòògùn iṣẹ́. You said you were going to work. Let's say, I may say something like, just to I suppose encourage you. There are many contexts that this would fit in. I might even be advising little children about the importance of work or something. Iṣẹ́ lòògùn iṣẹ́ means work is the antidote or remedy for poverty or for destitution. You have to work so that you won't be poor. That's one proverb. But I can also say kìràkìtà ò dọ́là. Ká ṣiṣẹ́ bí ẹrú ò dá nǹkan. Kìràkìtà ò dọ́là. Ká ṣiṣẹ́ bí ẹrú ò dá nǹkan. Hustle, running helter-skelter, doesn't translate into wealth. And working like a refugee servant doesn't translate into anything, into riches. So I can say that it really depends. Oh, I'm going to work. Oh, iṣẹ́ lòògùn iṣẹ́. Well done. But I can also say, well, if you go to work or not, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be rich. So, it really depends. That message can be contradictory. Should I work so that I'm not poor? Or should I not even bother? Of course, this doesn't say don't work. It just says the way that the earth works is not the most fair place. Working so hard that you hardly get sleep doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be the richest person in the world. As a matter of fact, that's not how it works. You find that the most affluent people, the most elite people, do the least work. They look down on people who do the most work, as a matter of fact. So that's one. That's one of such. Let's say, I find you to be too humble, too gentle, too, what's the word for, yeah, I suppose humility does it, where you are supposed to be visible, so to say, to pronounce yourself and pronounce your wishes. I find that you are a bit passive. I might say, adìẹ funfun ò mọ ara rẹ̀ lágbà to you. I might state that saying, that proverb to you. And that means the white chicken, the white hen, whatever, the white chicken doesn't know that they are the most senior. This has nothing to do with race or anything. Let's not translate it to the black and white world that we live in. The white hen doesn't know that they are the most senior. Look at how he's behaving. Look at how he's so humble and he's letting everybody walk over him. Adìẹ funfun ò mọ ara rẹ̀ lágbà is what I might say. But if I find you to be a bit too cocky as well, a bit too egoistic, I might say, àkùkọ gàgàrà ò fẹ́ kí kékeré ó kọ to you. Like, look at you, you're such a bully. The big or great cock doesn't want the smaller ones to crow. You're being so bullyish. You're being such a bully. You're being too active for my liking. You're being too bossy. I might say that as well. So now you leave the person conflicted. And these are all metaphors, of course, for people. Should they be gentle or should they be, should they be bossy? What do you want them to be? This is another instance where sayings or proverbs may contradict. And it's very much based on personal sentiment, not facts. So should make that clear as well. If a parent is displeased that their child has contributed to a conversation or given their 2 cents regarding a matter, they may react and say, "Erin ò fọ́ kọ́mọ ẹ̀ ó fọ́n. Erin ò fọ́n kọ́mọ ẹ̀ ó fọ́n." When an elephant trumpets, their calf doesn't trumpet. So you leave the big elephant to do that. At that point, that elephant is in charge. The big elephant is like, why would you be butting in or contributing to that? The big elephant is in charge. But another parent that might be more interested in what the young have to say might say, "Ọmọdé gbọ́n, àgbà gbọ́n, la fi dálẹ̀ Ifẹ̀." Or you could say, "Ọmọdé gbọ́n, àgbà gbọ́n, la fi dálẹ̀ Ifẹ̀." Ilé Ifẹ̀, Ilé Ifẹ̀, it's the same. The wisdom of both the young and old was crucial to the establishment of Ife land. So this parent would be saying, "I'm very glad that you've contributed, because nobody is all-knowing, whether they're young or they're old. The contribution of the young and the old is what makes a successful society work. You have to listen to the young too," which is not quite. With the big elephant trumpets, don't do that. Don't contribute. We're talking. This is very much, yes, bring that in. Your wisdom is also needed. It's very much subject to the personality that is using it, or the person that's using it, and what their sentiment is. It's not necessarily fact. Another parent might say, "Ajá ìwòyí ló mọ ehoro ìwòyí lé." The modern dog knows the best way to chase the modern rabbit. So if there's a matter that is new, modern, so to say, that perhaps nobody has encountered before, the modern dog knows how to chase the modern rabbit, knows their tricks, knows how to best capture them, which is, again, just like ọmọdé gbọ́n àgbà gbọ́n. Because you're younger, you know how to tackle younger problems or modern problems. You probably know the best way to approach it. You find that with many things that relate to technology and things like that. The younger ones tend to know how best to address it, as opposed to those who grew up without even computers or phones. Ọwọ́ ọmọdé ò tó pẹpẹ, tàgbàlagbà ò wá kèrègbè is another one that encourages the participation of both the young and the old as well. Ọwọ́ ọmọdé ò tó pẹpẹ, tàgbàlagbà ọwọ́ kèrègbè. The hand of the child or the youth cannot reach the platform. It could be the rafter, of a building. It could be a shelf. It could be a high table. The hand of the child cannot reach, but the hold cannot fit their hands into a gourd as well. Those gourds tend to look like this and have narrow mouths. So if you have a really, really small hand, like ages 1 to 15, let's say, it's very likely, and depending on the stature, of course, it's very likely that the hand would fit into it easily. I would say ages 0 to 10, it would very easily fit into the kerigbe. Ọwọ́ ọmọdé ò tó pẹpẹ, tàgbàlagbà ọwọ́ kèrègbè. There are some things that the old, the adults, cannot do, that the young can do, and there are some things that the young cannot do that the old can do. There are some things that certain age groups can do that others cannot do, and so everybody's participation and cooperation is needed for success. So that is none of this. The three that I've mentioned are quite. We are the big elephants. Don't contribute to anything that concerns adult talk. Stay in a child's place. These other proverbs are saying it is a child's place to contribute, to tackle situations and offer their 2 cents or their 50 cents so that we can all move towards progress. So you can see how that may contradict, and the usage may be very, very subjective as opposed to objective. Another one, ènìyàn láṣọ ènìyàn. A person's clothing is other people. Unclad or covered, you cannot feel true warmth without other people. Ènìyàn láṣọ ènìyàn. If I find that you have friends, let's say you're my word or my child, find that you have friends and I like that, I might say ènìyàn láṣọ ènìyàn. It's good that you try to keep relationships. You would find them useful and supportive at the right time. But if I don't quite, and it doesn't mean that I'm a bad parent or I'm a recluse, but if I also want to be cautionary in that regard, I can say ènìyàn ò fẹ́ ni fọ́rọ̀ bí òṣòrí ẹni. Ènìyàn ò fẹ́ ni fọ́rọ̀ bí òṣòrí ẹni. Nobody truly wants the other person to be successful. And nobody would be if not for their Ori's assistance, if not for their higher self's assistance. So it's very much a who trusts people message. One says, even if you have 1,000 clothes in the world, you can't feel true warmth. Your real clothes, your real source of comfort and warmth is really other people. And this says, well, don't trust people. Nobody really wants you to be successful. If they get the chance, they might bring you down. And even if they don't, they will likely put themselves first. If you want to truly know if someone loves you, then be more successful than they are, and you would really see their true colors. Or if someone likes you, it doesn't even have to be love. So this message is somewhat contradictory. Should I rely on people or should I not? So it's very subjective. There's another one. Bí a bá dàgbà kọjá bàǹtẹ́ onírù, ọmọ ẹni là ń bọ́ fún. Bí a bá dàgbà kọjá bàǹtẹ́ onírù, ọmọ ẹni là ń bọ́ fún. When we get too old, too grown for using the loincloth, we pass it on to our children. Loincloth with tail, sort of iru is tail, or niru, the one that has tail, is because of the way that they tie it. So it's very similar to this. And I suppose this is more, let me look for one that might be more accurate. This one is a bit more accurate. So the iru would be at the front, the tail. I think they're both accurate, actually, because this also has a tail in front here. So when they wanted to go to the streams or rivers to take a bath, the young men will tie loincloths like this, to cover their bodies, and they'll return like that too. I don't know if it was a fashion thing or it was just awkward. When they got to a certain age, the men stopped doing that. So they may go with their full shokoto, their trousers, or tie wrappers, cloths around their waist, but they stopped doing this. You won't see that anymore. And if you see it, it'd be very rare and probably not tied this way like the traditional loincloth. When we get too old for using the loincloth, we pass it on to our children to use it. It's like, yeah, I'm grown, too grown for this. I'm passing it on. Another proverb that might contradict that might be Ajogun ẹ̀wù kì í mọyì agbádá ńlá. Ajogun ẹ̀wù ò lè mọyì agbádá ńlá. When you get too grown for something, pass it on to your child, is what the previous message is saying. When you get too old for doing certain things, or some things are just too childish, pass it on. There are many ways that the previous proverb can be interpreted. It could be as literal as when you're past a certain stage of using something, give it to the children. You don't need it anymore. It's not something you're supposed to still have. You're supposed to pass it on. Or when you get too old for exhibiting a behavior, then just let the children have that instead. There are many ways that previous one can be interpreted. This one says, a person who inherits the great agbada does not know its value. So agbada ńlá, in the days when cowries were the currency, would have costed a lot, because the amount of work, maybe wool work, maybe needlework, maybe whatever that would have been needed, the energy, it was costly anyway. When you pass it on to a child of yours, when a child inherits that, they don't value it as much, probably because it's no longer fashionable, or because, they don't know what their parent or someone who passed it on to them went through. Perhaps the agbadanla was how people showed that they were affluent at some point, and it's no longer relevant. People are wearing denim now with white shirts. That's the thing in town. If the parent passes the agbada, the big agbada, to them and says, you can have it, yeah, they'll say, yeah, thank you, yeah. They will not know its value. They will not know how much that parent had to save to be able to get it, to be able to afford it. If that was the case, they just say, yeah, and they throw it somewhere. They don't appreciate it as much. When a person inherits something, they don't value it. So why pass it on to them? See, it can be contradictory and very subjective on what I think you should do. So if you said, should I give this car, my very first car, to my child, I can say, Baba dagba koja bante oniru, omenila bofun. You've had this car for, my goodness, I don't know how long, and you're past this now. You can afford a bigger one, or maybe you've even bought a bigger one, just pass it on to them. And I can say, well, pass it on to them at your own risk, because they'll never know its value. They'll never know how much you had to save to get it, how much you had to struggle to get it, what you went through. They'll never know its value. So I might discourage you. Neither is, the absolute best advice. The absolute best advice, or what you think is best, is entirely up to you and what you choose to do. Akigbe okere modidun obe. It's another one. Akigbe modidun obe. You don't know how well soup tastes from afar. You will never know. Oh, it's delicious. It's lovely. You can never know how well it tastes. Even if someone says, we had that stew, oh my goodness, it's so nice. They can't bring you that taste. You have to go there and taste it yourself. Experience is the best teacher. If I wanted to pass that message, might be what I may try to express when I say this. You can't know if you don't try. Or if it's another context, let's say you are asking me if you should date somebody. Let's use that as an example. I might say, and perhaps you've heard certain things, you've seen certain things. I might say, I might also say, Isumoni la moshieni, Isumoni la moshieni, Isumoni la moshieni, associating with a person closely, let you know their true character. So you never know who a person truly is if you don't establish a relationship with them. You'll never know their true self. So I may use either if I think, yes, you should absolutely hate this person. You'll never know. Yes, you've heard, yeah. You've heard certain things about how they may be quick to anger, or how they may be reclusive, or something doesn't necessarily sit well with you. Yeah. Date them and worry about that later, is what I might be trying to express if I use either of these two. If I want you to exercise caution and take heed and pay attention to the red flags that you've seen, I might say, bí pápá bá ń jó lóko, màjàlá ní délé ṣòfófó. Bí pápá bá ń jó lóko, màjàlá ní délé ṣòfófó. When the farm field is burning, the sooth comes home to gossip about it. So if someone tells you the farm is burning, or you see some signs, it'd be very, very stupid to say, I don't believe. I have to absolutely. And you see soot as well. You see soot, coming towards the direction of the places where people inhabit from the farm. Oh, and fires happened all the time. Back in the day, as it was then, so it is. Maybe you saw smoke or whatever, and people are telling you, I think your farm is probably on fire, or someone's farm is on fire. Be very silly to say, yeah, I don't believe it. Seeing is believing. I absolutely have to get to the farm and see it burning before I believe it. I absolutely have to step my foot into the farm and see it. It'd be very silly to do that, because the signs are there. You see the soot. So, I mean, soot comes from fire. Why would you not believe that something is burning when you see soot? So I might say this to discourage you from, venturing into that adventure, so to speak, because you see the signs already. You said something, they absolutely flare up, and they don't seem to like your sense of humor much. And you say, yeah, I can change him, or let me get into the relationship first and worry about that later. Obviously, that wouldn't be a good idea. You see the signs, take heed, pay attention to the signs. So it's very subjective. I might say, Aki, Bokere, Modido Obe, Sumoni La Mosheni. Enter into the relationship, worry about the red flags later. And I might say, well, if something is burning and you see the shoot, and you're waiting until you get to the farm to actually believe it, then that's a level of stupidity that is outstanding. So it's very subjective. Àtẹ́wọ́ bala, how many toko is another one. Àtẹ́wọ́ bala, how many toko. We found lines on our palms. We don't know who drew them. A statement people would often offer when they're trying to say, well, our destiny is pre-written. It's not much that can be done to change them. There's predestination. It's a thing. Àtẹ́wọ́ bala, how many toko. Person can also say, àyànmọ́ ògbóògùn, orílẹ̀-ẹlẹ́jọ́. Àyànmọ́ ògbóògùn, orílẹ̀-ẹlẹ́jọ́. Predestination cannot be remedied. The Ori is to be held responsible. The Ori chose the path. Our current existence is quite temporary. It's like a school, and it's an opportunity that shouldn't be taken for granted. If you have the chance to be human, it's not an easy journey. I should say. It's not all fun and games. As much as we know that it's temporary, some things don't feel temporary, some things hurt, and some things are quite enjoyable. But the experience is one that we should enjoy thoroughly. Àyànmọ́ ògbóògùn, orílẹ̀-ẹlẹ́jọ́. Predestination cannot be remedied. The Ori chose that. The Ori chose primary 5 or class 5 as what you should be in, or what you should experience at a certain time. And maybe class 5 isn't the most enjoyable class, isn't the most fun class. Your Ori chose that for you at this time. So stick to it. Stick to it. You can't do anything about it. That's a saying. And I might also say, ọwọ́ ẹni la fi ń tún ìwà ara ẹni ṣe. Ọwọ́ ẹni la fi ń tún ìwà ara ẹni ṣe. A person fixes their character with their hands themselves. So this one isn't quite, these things are predestined. We can't. These things are predestined. I can't stress myself. Just whatever wants to happen to me, let it happen. And this one says, well, you have the power to change stuff. You can't say, I was born this way to always be tired, or to not know how to read, or to not, you fix that with your own hands, with your own conscious effort. There is predestination, yes, but it can't be changed. You can fix that, you can change that. You have the power to change that. So it's very subjective. If you say you're encountering this, I might say, yeah, I just accept. But I can also say, well, fixing that is in your hands. You found lines on your palms and you don't know who drew them. You don't know how things got predestined. But you can also fix things using that same hand. So it's very subjective. Another one. Ilé ọba tó jó ẹwà ló bù sí. Ilé ọba tó jó ẹwà ló bù sí. When a palace burns, it becomes even more beautiful. It's what this proverb says. When a palace burns, it becomes even more beautiful because people, subjects, want to fix it quickly. They want it to be, to look even better than it was. When it burns, they put their resources together, their energy, their time to make sure that it's rebuilt. It would be very awkward if the monarch is homeless or if their living conditions aren't good. When something gets destroyed, it becomes even more beautiful. I might say that when you tell me, you've been through something, you don't feel like this is fixable. I might say, well, yes, you've gone through this and this is good, because when you come out of it, when that's done, your situation becomes much, much better, even more beautiful. If I don't like you, yes, and I want to hurt your feelings even more, I might say, ojú àpá ò lè jọ ojú ara. Even when you're healing, even when you're healing from that situation, I might say, ojú àpá ò lè jọ ojú ara. Ojú àpá ò lè jọ ojú ara. Scarred skin cannot look like what it used to be. So if you have a scar or, from an injury and it's healing, I look at it and say, it's healing. That's cute, but it would never be what it used to be. Just forget it. It would never be what it used to look like. Wow. Right? As opposed to saying the former, that when a palace gets burnt, it gets even more beautiful, and you shouldn't worry, because this experience is one that would make you grow and some ramification. I might be saying this to hurt you. Or maybe I think I'm being factual. I don't know. It's very subjective. Scarred skin cannot look like what it used to be. Even if you think you're healing, you'll never really heal because the scar would always be there to remind you. So it's entirely based on who the speaker is and how they feel about the addressee, the recipient. Ẹni rán ni níṣẹ́ là bẹ̀rù, a kì í bẹ̀rù ẹni tá ó jẹ fún. Ẹni rán ni níṣẹ́ là ń bẹ̀rù, a kì í bẹ̀rù ẹni tí a ó jẹ fún. The one who gave the assignment is one who one ought to be afraid of, not the recipient. If somebody sent you to do something, perhaps the message that they've asked you to deliver wouldn't be the most pleasing to the person they've sent you to. This one encourages you to state the message. State it. If they've said, tell him that he's a fool, this proverb, this saying encourages you to go right there, because it says, well, don't be afraid of the recipient. This other saying says, tí wọ́n bá rán ni níṣẹ́ ẹrú, àá fi tọmọ jẹ. Tí wọ́n bá rán ni níṣẹ́ ẹrú, àá fi tọmọ jẹ. If you're sent on an assignment or on an errand like a refugee servant, you deliver it like a child. Ẹrú is not slave. I have a video dedicated to that, because if you don't realize that and you translate this as slave, you'll miss the message. I explained how refugee servant, how Eru in its original sense came to be, the factors that caused people to leave, because moving around almost was very rare anyway, up until a certain point. If your family resided in an area, you would stay there. Now, it doesn't mean you won't travel or explore, or if your work is hunting, you go hunting. If your work is farming, you go farming into big farms. If you are an entertainer with drums and music and dance, doesn't mean that you don't go exploring. If you sold clothes, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't go to the nearby villages to sell. You just didn't move there permanently. That was rare. But after a while, because of certain factors, some people would leave their homes forever. And depending on how affluent they were or the resources that they had. So if you had enough resources, you would move to this other place and you would have a happy life. But if you're coming with nothing, which tended to be the case, let's say you were banished for doing something by the Oro, one for Liendu, and you move to a different place with nothing but like the pants that you have on, you have to work to survive. You have to do what's it called? There's a word for it, but you had to struggle to survive. You became a refugee servant. You can have a permanent boss, or you can just go from boss to boss. Really depends on what your situation is or what your skill set is. But you became a refugee servant. Now, if you're sent on an errand like a refugee servant, like someone who doesn't necessarily know the do's and don'ts of that town, of that village, if you're sent like someone who doesn't know right and wrong, just go and tell them they are a fool. As someone who is an indigene child, so to say, Omo Ilu, that is an indigene, you know that in this village we don't tell adults that they are fools. We don't do that. You have to massage that message. So you can go there and say, Baba mi ya mi binu, my father, you're talking to this person, that somebody has asked you, a woman has asked you to call the fool. Oh, my father, my mom is mad, is upset at you, as opposed to going right there like someone who like someone who doesn't. Oh, maybe in this town that's what they do. They call one another fools when they're upset. I'm just going to go right there and do that and deliver that message. As an indigene, it's not done. It's rude. So you say, my mother is mad at you. And the person might say, why? And then you say, well, because this and that happened, and she wasn't pleased with what you did there, and you say it in such a way that not only is the recipient remorseful, they may even come back with you and say, oh, I didn't know you were mad at me, or they may even send something that may appease the sender. This is why our rokos can also be very good, because you can pass on a message without necessarily making the messenger like responsible for anything. You can say, give this person this, and they'll get the message. So, and also the messenger knows not to open it. So you free them from any repercussions. If they go there and say, I've been told to call you a fool, you are a fool, and they get a dirty slap, you put that person in the middle. But when you just pass on the message without asking them to say anything, they safely send the you are a fool message without any repercussions for them. But anyway, this message is not quite like the former. This one is, even when you're sent on an errand or you're given an assignment, you still have to use your own intuition and figure out what is right and what isn't, and deliver the message accordingly. You can't deliver the message like like someone who doesn't think, like someone who doesn't know the customs, like someone who doesn't know what is right from wrong. So this is where some contradiction might happen based on my own subjectivity, based on what I think is right. If I want you to go straight on and lash the person, I might say, just do that. But I might also say, well, do it in such a way that you don't make the situation worse and you don't bring any consequences upon your own self. This one says, bí a bá ń bá ọmọdé jẹun lóko, bá a bá ń bá ọmọdé jẹun lóko, gọ̀mùgọ̀mù imú ẹni ní ń wò. Bí a bá ń bá ọmọdé jẹun lóko, gọ̀mùgọ̀mù imú ẹni ní ń wò. When one eats with a child on the farm, it's a farm, I guess, you have a big leaf, maybe banana leaf or something, and you put food in there, and you're both eating from the same tray. When you're eating with the child and you're that close to them, you're in close proximity, they start to assess the protrusion of your nose, is what this says. They start to think that you're on the same level. So they go, oh, I didn't. Because, usually if you're not sat together or something, they would have no cause to assess you. You're not even in the same circle, but you're in the farm, eating resources aren't readily available. So maybe you find something, a little bush rat, some emo or something, and you roast it and you want to eat it together because you've been working all day, when you sit down with that child and you start to eat together like you're on the same level, you give them more than enough time to start to assess you. I didn't know Baba's nose was this big. Right? This is an equivalent. Well, I shouldn't say an equivalent, but it's like familiarity, breeds contempt. When you get too close to a person, they start to see your shortfalls or your imperfections, especially a child, someone that isn't even on the same level with you. It might be a literal child or a child metaphorically, someone that is not on your level. When you get close to them and you start to treat them like partners in some regard, they will likely take that for granted and start to test their boundaries. Papa, I didn't know this your nose was too big. And even if they don't say it, you might start to notice that they're assessing some defect that you have or something. This is one. This one discourages being too humble in relation to a certain age group or class. Just class yourself. Don't. This one says, "Ọmọ tó bá mọwọ́ wẹ̀ á bágbà jẹun," which is the opposite. A child who knows how to wash their hands will eat with the elders, should be allowed to eat with the elders. They know how to wash their hands well and clean in the way that they are not splashing. They are not doing this after washing their hands, splashing water into the face of the elders or being so messy, or they know how to do it in a clean way and in a decent way, which is a metaphor for many things. They know when to talk and when not to talk. They know when to act and when not to act. They know what to do and what not to do. They absolutely should have a peerage, if that is the context. They absolutely should be allowed into certain circles because age-wise or position-wise, they are not quite where we are, but they know how to act in a way that fits a group. The first says, you see, you can't pity these youngins or these newbies. When you bring them close and you get familiar with them, now they'll start to take that for granted. This one says, oh, we absolutely should allow them. We absolutely should let them join our circle. So the message is somewhat contradictory and is subjective to me and my own thoughts. Neither is absolute fact. If I want you to allow somebody into the group, I'd say yes, absolutely. But I might also say, well, when you bring this one in, you start to make them think like they're one of us or they're as old as we are in whatever context. If I see you doing some side business, I might praise you for it. I might say, onokon woja. Like, not just one road leads to the market. This one is used in many, many different contexts as well. You could interpret it as not just one proposal is feasible or can be feasible. Like, there are always alternatives, or there can always be alternatives when it comes to how to best address a situation. Alternatives should always exist. That that this one method would work doesn't mean that this other won't work. People also use it in the context of when you're hustling or you're doing this and you're doing that and you're just so that you can put all that money together and it becomes good money. You're selling stuff and doing this and doing that and also working a job and so that you can afford a decent living. You might say, yes, that's really the best way to go. But another person might say, Araki roni kashe gita. Araki roni kashe gita. If you have a certain position, but you also go out to look for firewood so that you can sell, let's say you are a hunter. This one says if you're so successful in that hunting business, you have no business walking around and gathering firewood so that you can also sell besides hunting. Like, it just shows that you're poor. It's an evidence of the fact that you're not living well when you're doing so many things at once. In this context, when you're doing menial labor, the first one is sort of like a praise. Like, yeah, you finding different ways to solve the problem of not having money and doing this and that and putting all those resources together. That's really good. This one says it just shows that you're poor. Oh, you're also a driver and also you're poor. You're not comfortable because if you're saying that you're comfortable, you wouldn't have to do all that in the first place. Like, it just shows you're not comfortable. Very subjective to what I think or how I feel about the person who's doing all that work. Òkú kìí farapamọ́ fẹ́ni tó máa sín. Òkú kìí farapamọ́ fẹ́ni tó máa sín. corpses don't hide from, or which means they aren't modest before, those who will bury them. If you take off their shirt, it's up to you. If you raise their leg, that's your problem. The soul is no longer there. So whatever you choose to do, that's your problem. They aren't modest. Oh, maybe when they were alive, oh, my boobs don't look at anything. They don't care anymore. The real self is gone. So in this context, if I want to encourage you to say something, like, you're already in trouble. Why are you trying to hide anything? I'm your lawyer at this point. Just tell me the facts. When we get to the court, it will be my responsibility to defend you, to take care of this mess. So I'm the wrong person to be modest before, because I'm responsible for burying you, so to speak. But another person might say, àgbàlagbà ṣenú kodoro, èyí tí ó ṣe wà nínú rẹ̀. Àgbàlagbà ṣekùn kodoro, èyí tí ó ṣe wà níkùn rẹ̀. Whichever you prefer. Àgbàlagbà ṣenú kodoro, èyí tí ó ṣe wà nínú rẹ̀. Àgbàlagbà ṣekùn kodoro, èyí tí ó ṣe wà nínú rẹ̀. An elder or senior rounds their stomach or mind. So as opposed to making it flat and easily accessible, I suppose, they make it round. Their plans reside there. When you get to a certain stage in life, you must learn how to keep some things to yourself. So if I want you to tell your lawyer absolutely everything, absolutely everything, might say, Okuki farapamo feni to masin. This person is responsible for defending you. It would be rather stupid to keep every single fact of the case from them. But I can also say, well, nobody knows about this other part. So, I mean, when you get to a certain stage in life, whatever it is that you're planning, or whatever it is that has happened, has to live in you and die with you. You don't say, some things are not just said. You just keep them with you forever until the end of time. That's subjective, right? It's very much based on what I think you should do. Now, it's up to you and your Ori to determine what the best course of action is for you and what you think is best based on the scenario. It's contradictory advice. I can give you either. It's up to you and your Ori to make a decision regarding, do you want to be fully expressive or not. Àgbà kìí wà lọ́jà kórí ọmọ tuntun wọ́ is another. Àgbà kìí wà lọ́jà kórí ọmọ tuntun wọ́. A newborn's head cannot be wrongly placed when an adult is in the market. When you have people around, adults, elders, it's very likely that a situation would not be fixed or remedied. Like, they will notice it. They're responsible for taking care of the young. Children may not know that the baby's head is likely hurting with that awkward position, but adults would likely know. Show your money, dad. And one thing about Yoruba people, because I used to take public transport a lot when I was a very, very young girl, from school and back home in Nigeria. And the interesting thing is, like, people just want to contribute. It's so communal in many ways, even until now, that even if the baby's head is good, like, there's nothing wrong with, or maybe I just wasn't seeing it, I don't know. Even if the baby's head was well placed, somebody just wants to say something. It's, like, lift this baby's head. There's nothing wrong with this baby. This baby's good. But everybody just wants to, I guess, contribute to something or say something. Like, people are just throwing advice at you, and it can be annoying for anybody who doesn't like unsolicited advice. It can be very, very annoying. But that it's the life, I guess. So I find this to be very accurate even now. Even if a child is placed in the right way, when they're on their mother's back, or somebody's holding them, or somebody's supporting their head, someone will always do want to say something like, yeah, but support that baby's head even better. Do it even better. It's very communal. Àgbà kìí wà lọ́jà kórí ọmọ tuntun wọ́. Now, if a parent doesn't want to deal with a situation, I can't be bothered. You don't know how to do this. That's your problem. Figure it out. They might say, alágẹmọ ti bímọ rẹ̀ ná, àìmọ̀ jókù sọ́wọ́ ẹ̀. Alágẹmọ ti bímọ rẹ̀ ná. Àìmọ̀ ojú kù sọ́wọ́ ẹ̀. Mother chameleons have no maternal instinct whatsoever. If you've seen a chameleon give birth, watch them lay their eggs. I think that's how it goes, and then those eggs hatch, and like they don't care anymore. It's just they don't have any maternal instincts. If they survive, good. If they don't survive, I couldn't care less. It's just not in their nature. The chameleon has birthed its young, not knowing how to dance is up to the young to address or fix. The first says, we're here for you. That's why we're here, to nurture you and to take care of you. Like if you're thanking somebody for doing something for you, maybe an adult, and they might say, àgbà kì í wà lọ́jà kórí ọmọ tuntun. Well, that's what we're here for, to help you, to make sure that you're okay. Mom, I don't know how. Alágẹmọ ti bímọ rẹ̀ ná. Àìmọ̀ ojú kù sọ́wọ́ ẹ̀. That one is not my problem. If you like, figure it out. If you like, don't figure it out. I couldn't care less. How this would be uttered would depend on the mother or the person, the parent. They might say, àgbà kì í wà lọ́jà kórí. But they might also say, well, if you don't know how to camouflage or do like that's up to you to figure out. That's your problem. I've done my part by birthing you. Figure the rest out, So contradiction right there, and very subjective. Òjò tó rọ̀ ló da ẹyẹlé pọ̀ mádìyẹ is another very popular saying. When you and a person are in a situation, or maybe somebody's been rude to you, I find that it's used mostly in those instances, might say, it's because the rain is falling. It's because of the rain that the pigeon and the chicken are sharing a roost. I've seen people use that on Facebook, like, so because we're both using Facebook, you think you can be rude to me. I've seen that a lot. Òjò tó rọ̀ ló kó ẹyẹlé pọ̀ mádìyẹ. Òjò tó rọ̀ ló da ẹyẹlé pọ̀ mádìyẹ. The rain is the reason the pigeons and the chickens share a roost. I've never seen a chicken and a pigeon, move together either. It's an unlikely pair. But when the rain is falling and they are trying to avoid the rain, they share a roost, I guess. Nobody wants to be beaten by the rain. It's because of the rain that we're within this same scenario together. It's because of the situation. Otherwise, do you think that you would ever even be able to talk to me or address me or be in the same room with me or whatever? That's one. That's for, we're not in the same level. Perhaps because we work in the same building, I guess, or because we share the same office, you think you can be rude to me, but not for work. You know that you're not on my level. That's the previous one. This one is àparò kan ò ga jù kan lọ àfèyí tó bá gorí ebè. No partridge is bigger or taller than the other, except one climbs a heap. Àparò kan ò ga jù kan lọ àfèyí tó bá gorí ebè. Everybody's equal. Is the message that people who tend to use this proverb seek to pass. Direct her to the... You're climbing a heap by doing that. When you climb a heap, somebody becomes representative of and you become director of you're climbing a heap. But when you come down from that heap, when you come down from that position, you realize that at the end of the day, at our very core, we're all equal. That's the message that this one seeks to pass. If you get a position or life takes you to a stage, you climb a heap. Right? And it tends to be... life itself is temporary, but those heaps tend to be temporary too. Even if you're the president of a country, except you are certain heads of states that literally wait until they die, until they come... Life forces them down from that heap, or they metaphorically fall from the heap. Besides that, even if you're a president, it only lasts for 4 years. Nothing lasts forever. So at our very core, we're all just bodies with souls. It's the message that this one seeks to pass. If you climb a heap, you have a position for a while. When you come down from that heap, and you find yourself without that title, then you realize that no partridge is bigger or taller than the other, except, when one climbs a heap. There are two ways to address it, to address the situation. I can address it from the like, you know my position. Do you know who I am? And it may not necessarily be meant in a negative way too. If you think I'm better than this. You can say that, but you can also say, well, that's our very core. We're all equal. I'm not any better. This person is not any worse. At the end of the day, we're all equal. So that message can be contradictory and very subjective. This one is bí ará ilé ẹni bá ń jẹ kòkòrò búburú tí a ò sọ fún uruhere. Ho ho. I've heard both, so I included both. Uruhere rẹ̀ kò ní jẹ́ ká sùn lóru. Bí ará ilé ẹni bá ń jẹ kòkòrò búburú tí a ò sọ fún ọ̀họ̀hù rẹ̀ ò ní jẹ́ á sùn lóru. Bí ará ilé ẹni bá ń jẹ kòkòrò búburú tí a ò sọ fún uruhere rẹ̀ kò ní jẹ́ á sùn lóru. If a member of one's household eats bad insects, there are some insects that can be edible. I think esunsun, what are they called? I've forgotten the English name now, but there are certain insects that are edible anyway. If a member of one's household eats bad insects, the ones that shouldn't be eaten, and one doesn't warn them against it, their acne cough won't let one sleep at night. So all day you watch this person eat this thing. You didn't say anything. It's not my problem. So they don't know that these kinds of insects aren't edible. Yeah, I'm not going to tell them. I'm going to let them suffer. Don't care. When it's midnight and they start coughing and you try to block your ears, right? And they're starting to drive you crazy because you didn't tell them to stop, there's a consequence for you as well. This proverb can be used in the context of when you don't speak up at the right time and the consequences come. If you think it's not your business, it will forcefully become your business because you have to share the same building. You have to share the same house. You have to share the same situation. So speak up. This one says, Tí bá bàjẹ́, tónídìí ló ń dà. So if a situation gets negative, it tends to be the problem of the person who is, solely affected. Like, I'll tell you the English translation. When the private parts, idi can be translated as buttocks, but it can also be like everything underneath besides the buttocks. When the private parts get ruined, it becomes the private part owner's problem. Right? If you're so active that you don't pay attention to your health, when something happens down there, that's nobody else's problem but yours. You suffer it alone. Oh, my bum hurts, or this hurts, or that's your problem. Right? The previous one says, oh, speak up and talk, and because this person would not suffer alone, they won't be able to sleep. You won't be able to sleep because of the coughing. They won't be able to sleep because they're coughing. It's not just a one-person problem. It's an everybody problem. This one says it's definitely a one-person problem. It's definitely their problem. So this is subjective. The first one encourages that, many problems are in fact shared directly or indirectly, and everybody tends to bear the consequence besides the person that is responsible, the person that was eating insects that weren't supposed to be eaten. This one says, oh, definitely it's their problem. That you don't have to worry about. It won't be your butt, your butt, your private parts that will be affected. It will be theirs. So the message can be contradictory and subjective. Another one is bí ọmọ bá gbọ́ngbọ́n kúkú, ìyá rẹ̀ náà gbọ́ngbọ́n sísìn. Bọ́mọ bá gbọ́ngbọ́n kúkú, ìyá rẹ̀ náà gbọ́ngbọ́n sísìn. When a child makes plans to die, the mother also prepares to bury it. So I think this one is directly connected to the child mortality, abiku days. When a child you've done everything, and I think there's a fuller version. Bọ́mọ bá gbọ́ngbọ́n kúkú lẹ́rùn, ìyá rẹ̀ náà gbọ́ngbọ́n sísìn nípàdò. I've also heard that version. Bọ́mọ bá gbọ́ngbọ́n kúkú lẹ́rùn, ìyá rẹ̀ náà gbọ́ngbọ́n sísìn nípàdò. When a child makes plans to die, when it's dry, I guess, dry season, the mother also plans to bury it beside the river or something like that. I've heard that version too somewhere. But this is the popular version anyway. When a child makes plans to die and you've done everything, you've called the babalawo, you've done this and done that, and you're still, when child mortality used to be a real issue. And, that was one main reason why Oshun became very prominent, because she knew how to Alagbolodo. She was very good with hydrotherapy. She was an herbalist, a diviner, and many things. Her contributions to helping in that regard with child mortality issues is one that we'll never forget. It's not like now. Many children died in their, just shortly after they were born back in the day. And that's why the concept of Biabiku also came, because some of those souls, I haven't dedicated any video to it, but it's very interesting. Sometimes what they would do to identify if a child was an abiku, the one who is born to die, is they would put a mark somewhere in a very conspicuous place, maybe somewhere on their chest or on their face or something, while they were sick, and you knew that they were going to die, or even after they died. And when the woman would get pregnant again and give birth, was very weird. They would find that mark. Now it might come through as a birthmark. It was a sign of, isn't this like the same soul? Isn't this the same person that died earlier and has come back to this same mother? This is very problematic. So they started to build concepts around it. I would have to talk about this separately because it's a lot, and the roles that maternal deities, women that have not been deified, like Oshun and Yemoja, and the things that they did to help in that regard. Child mortality, just in the world in general, it says the rates have definitely gotten much, much better. Yeah, it was horrible back in the day. When a child makes plans to die, the mother also prepares to bury it. Sort of relates to those times. Mothers would use that when they're upset, when they're mad. Like, I've told you not to do something and you keep doing it. I'm ready for you, sort of. Ọmọ ẹni ò lè ṣèdí bẹ̀bẹ̀rẹ̀ ká fìlẹ̀kẹ̀ sídìí ọmọ ẹlòmíràn. Ọmọ ẹni ò lè ṣèdí bẹ̀bẹ̀rẹ̀ ká fìlẹ̀kẹ̀ sídìí ọmọ ẹlòmíì. If one's child has an odd-looking butt or buttocks, one cannot adorn another person's child's buttocks instead. Orí bẹ̀bẹ̀rẹ̀ bákan. This butt is not... you can't buy waist beads for another person's child. You adorn your own child regardless of their imperfections. The first one is, well, if you're going to be imperfect in this way and you don't make any attempts to fix it, I'm ready for you. I'm going to deal with you accordingly. And it's very based on context and subjective. This one is, I know that you're not the smartest child. The first one is, you're trying not to be smart. Okay, I will deal with you accordingly. This one is, I know you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I mean, you're mine. You're my dummy anyway. I can't do anything about it. Even if one's child has an odd-looking butt, one cannot adorn another person's child's butt instead. You're my problem to deal with. I can't. It's the message is contradictory. It can be subjective, depending on the situation. If I feel that, if the child is being daft, then you treat them like they are daft. That's first. This one is, what can we do? These kids, they will always, it's very like imperfect, but what can we do? So it can be subjective. Ibilile Latin bomo ọkùnrin is another one. It's a very popular saying. And women tend to, I've never really heard, well, maybe I have heard a man use it, but women tend to use it. It's very funny. Just I don't want to say the manipulation, but it's somewhat manipulative. Ibilile Latin bomo ọkùnrin. True men are found in difficult or dangerous places. If you want to know who a true man is, you find them in I'm very sure women likely came up with this one. I'm fairly sure. It doesn't seem like something that a man would have started saying before it became popularized and became a standard saying. A woman likely just, oh, you don't want to do that, aren't you a man? That emotional manipulation. People would often use that saying in the sense of, if you want to know who you truly are, you want to test yourself, you try the difficult and dangerous things. So that's the context that one is used in. This one says, Moja, Mosa, Lamaki kanju loju ogun. Akíkanjú tó bá mọ̀jà tí ò mọ̀sá, irú wọn máa ń bógun lọ ni. When at war, the truly brave ones know when to fight, but also know when to run or when to hide. As opposed to you want to prove yourself? Yeah, you definitely have to go to the dangerous places and remain there. This message says, when at war, the truly brave ones know when to fight, but they also know when to hide. They know when to run. Like, you'd have to be very stupid to not run because you want to prove yourself. Like, yes, I'm a warrior. I'm brave. I'm a man. I'm totally going to stay there and let these people shoot at me because ibilile Latin bomb mokuri. Where the bullets are flying is where you would know if someone is a true man or not. So if I don't like you, I suppose I can say, oh yeah, absolutely, ibilile Latin bomb mokuri. Go there and lose your life. I couldn't care less. But yeah, you want to prove yourself and that you're a man. You absolutely should go to all the places where the shooting is happening. This one says, knowing how to fight, right? Knowing when to be active and knowing when to be passive is how you know the truly brave ones at war. Akíkanjú tó bá mọ̀jà tí ó mọ̀sá, a brave person that knows how to fight but doesn't know how to run will pass away with the war. They never make it because they're stupid. You see danger, you stay there for what? For what? Because ibilile Latin bomokuri. How daft. So the message can be very subjective on what the speaker's sentiments are regarding bravery and danger. I'm going to just stop here, I guess. I'm going to, yeah, just one more and I'm done. Ojú mẹ́rin ló ń pe ọmọ wáyé, ìgbà ojú ò tó tọ́ is another one. Ojú mẹ́rin ló ń pe ọmọ wáyé, ìgbà ojú ò tó tọ́. 4 eyes, which is a metaphor for 2 people, bring a child to the world, yet 200 eyes, a multitude of people, aren't enough to raise it. Ojú mẹ́rin ló ń pe ọmọ wáyé, ìgbà ojú ò tó tọ́. 4 eyes bring a child to the world, yet 200 eyes aren't enough to raise it. You can't. This one is in relation to communal training. The situations that this child would encounter, the places this child will go to. Like, just those 2 people can't absolutely direct that child or tell them everything that they absolutely need to know to survive. Some things they will learn from experience, some things they would have to learn from other people. Those 4 eyes can't watch that child and absolutely deliver everything that needs to be delivered to that child, to that soul. Yes, they brought the child to the world, but the school that life is, the training, the education that child needs will have to come from a multitude of people from different sources. Everybody has to be actively responsible for educating that child properly, for training that child and letting them know what the social norms are and how to survive in this world that is the earth. Ojú mẹ́rin ló ń pe ọmọ wáyé, ìgbà ojú ò tó tọ́. This one says, bá mi nọ́mọ mi kì í dénú ọlọ́mọ. Bá mi nọ́mọ mi kì í dénú ọlọ́mọ. Beat my child for me, when uttered by the child owner, is ingenuine. The first one says, oh, you 2 are raising the child, but even 200 people aren't enough to raise this child. Telling them what is right and what is wrong and what to do and what not to do and letting someone discipline your child, and even all that isn't enough to make the child the perfect person in the world. But this proverb also expresses that many times parents want to be directly responsible for their own child's upbringing because I guess they would be the kindest at the end of the day. If you bring your child to me and you say your child has been stubborn and I grab that child and I give that child a slap, you might go, yay, don't worry. Don't bother. It's okay. I didn't tell you to go that far. Right? But the initial message says everybody should be responsible for training the child. I should be able to, but this one says, the parents will still have some kind of soft spot for that child because they know what they went through when the child was to come to earth. I didn't. So you want me to beat your child for you? Well, no problem. Tap, 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 tap. And he might go, you are always okay. My bad no mommy, mama bad no, like don't bother. You're too mean. So beat my child for me when ordered by the child owner isn't genuine, genuine isn't genuine, is false. They might let you give the child like tap tap tap, tap right? But it's not genuine because after a while they'll go, oh tito, eshe, oh tito ba jare. They're telling you, they're starting to feel it in their body. that yeah, those hits are yeah, that was too much. It's not genuine. It's not the truth. It's fake. It's fake. But no mommy. You don't know lomo. After a while, they'll start to take back that statement. Like, I will deal with her later. I'm laughing because I've seen that happen. I know that you see parents tell their maybe the child's lesson teacher or something. If he or she isn't listening, don't hesitate to beat him or her. Well, but when the teacher goes cha, first time, cha, second time, cha, third time, cha, the third time, by the fifth time, they'll start to, kilo she uncle. You said we can beat this child for you, so why are you, why are you expressing reservations now? It's not genuine. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you have more that you'd like to add, don't hesitate to do so. I also have a couple. But if I didn't stop where I did, I don't think this video would be out at this time or be out anytime soon. So just going to let other people contribute to the discussion. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you for watching and for your time. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day, and bye for now.
Àṣẹ o. Àṣẹ o.